we were caught in this kind of rat race, this cycle of like busyness and kind of feeling like we have to be in the office at our desks all the time. So we wanted to scratch our own itch. We have a saying, but it's basically you've got to switch off to be switched on. I guess in a nutshell, we help people get to nature, and our mission is to help people do that more often.
These guys quit their jobs to build a series of cabins made from sustainable materials to encourage more of us to enjoy the natural beauty of the bush.
So it's basically been proven to improve relationships, to offset depression and anxiety. If you're a peak athlete, you're not sprinting and operating 110% all the time. But those of us in the corporate world, what we do is the exact opposite. We're like throwing ourselves at problems, at stuff every day, but that's actually like totally counter to it. There's just so many things done in the world where you ask why and people say because, and that's such a shit answer. But so many people didn't really realize how powerful nature is.
Why were you so hell-bent on making this work?
That's a great question.
This episode is brought to you by Wix Studio.
Here at the Agency Podcast, we're building a community and we would love for you guys to be a part of it. So we would love to hear from you. What are you enjoying the most? What would you like to see more of? And what do you think might be missing? Drop a comment, make sure you subscribe. And now, on with the show. Cameron, welcome to the Agency Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I guess a point to jump into here, which I think is a bit of fun, is that your mum famously stopped you from burning your suits when you quit banking. What did the corporate uniform represent to you before all of this happened?
That's hilarious. I had actually completely forgotten that. What it represent, I guess it sort of, philosophically sort of represented the shackles of the 9 to 5, if that's the phrase that I would probably use. But it's sort of like, I never wore a tie. I always had my sleeves rolled up. But when I went to meetings, I'd put the jacket on so you couldn't quite tell and you still look smart. But those were like my little rebellions for the corporate world. But I sort of saw that, the requirement to wear that stuff, to conform to that, was unnecessary. Like, you didn't need to be wearing a shirt and suit to be smart and creative. So I guess moving away from that, I was keen to like signal an end to that kind of bullshit, I guess, to that like just, nodding to something that you feel like you have to do, whereas it actually doesn't have any tangible value.
So what happened at that time? Like, at what point of your journey was this moment where you decided to quit and go all in?
It's a good question. I don't actually remember if there was like a light bulb moment. I actually can't remember the decision of us like making the call to do the business. I remember all of the work beforehand, and like we did, we had Post-it notes on our parents' living room wall for like weeks, and we were doing all planning and brainstorming and research on cabin designs and stuff. And then I remember us having built the cabins or building the cabins. But that little decision where we're like, let's do it. I don't know if it was one decision or just like a getting used to it. And then suddenly like we're in it.
What exactly is Unyoked, and what was the genesis of this idea?
Cool. I guess in a nutshell, we help people get to nature, and our mission is to help people do that more often. We do that in 2 ways. We sort of raise awareness for the scientific benefits of nature so people can understand how it impacts their day-to-day more, so they can understand the benefits and go more often. And then we help them do that. We do that through our network of off-grid cabins. They're all minimalist designed. They're tucked in, uniquely secluded and immersive natural locations, all within 1 to 2 hours of major cities. And that's across Australia, UK and New Zealand, and soon to be Europe. And then supported by a intentionally designed experience that's every single little step from where you park your car to how you grind your coffee is sort of designed purposely to help you slow down and tap into those benefits quickly. And I guess it all came from, going all the way back. So it's me and my twin brother, Chris, we're the co-founders, and we sort of grew up moving around Australia, our sort of early lives. So we went from Darwin, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, all in our young years. And one of the constants in our life at that point was nature. We'd move to a new city, wouldn't have any friends. Our parents would chuck us outdoors. That sort of evolved into like hiking and camping. That sort of evolved into overseas trips to places like Nepal, Sumatra, the Amazon. And then we didn't realize it at the time, but that was having a real effect on us. Like after those trips, we'd come back, refreshed, reflective, re-energized, sort of actually having a reset. And then when we started getting into corporate world, so we can go down that tangent at some point, but I worked at CBA in the strategy department. My brother was working first at Woolworths in the digital marketing, but then in a high growth startup called General Assembly. And we were stressed, we were busy, we were a bit more anxious. And we sort of started to realize that what was missing were those trips. It was our ability to get out to nature, to really switch off and get away from civilization. We realized that we wanted to have that. We wanted to be there, but we wanted to do it on that Wednesday or that Thursday when we actually needed it. Like we were stressed and anxious then. We didn't want to have to plan for a 4-week trip at the end of the year, get leave, research, fly away, go and do it. We wanted to feel those benefits of being away in the middle of nature. So we sort of put 2 and 2 together and we realized that, tiny houses were kind of just taking off around the world. Like there were little pockets of architects tinkering with them. And we sort of realized that by building these sort of little minimalist off-grid structures, we could unlock spaces within an hour or 2 from cities on private land because you wouldn't require the building codes, you wouldn't require the cost, and you could actually get into spaces that you couldn't otherwise go into. And then that would enable people to get into these locations quickly and easily and be able to start doing it as a sort of habit throughout their day-to-day.
So you're at work, you're looking at spreadsheets, and you're like, dude, there's a polarity here. We need less of this and more of this.
Pretty much.
And did this just start with a conversation between you and your brother where you were like, hey, I got like an idea to build cabins? Like what was the genesis of the idea? Because it's such a unique concept where you're marrying nature together with minimalistic design. You describe it as like an instrument of nature, which I want to get into in a moment. But what was the formulation of that concept? Like how did it go from idea through to, okay, like now we're actually going to start tinkering on this and building it?
I mean, again, I guess to go a bit down a tangent, like we always wanted to do something. So I guess with the benefit of hindsight, like probably instilled in us from our parents. So like our dad left, he was from the UK, left home when he was 16, joined the Merchant Navy, and then sort of jumped into worked for Carlton United Breweries and sort of worked his way up, created his own path and was relatively successful. And our mum was a teacher and always sort of pushing us to be curious and those sort of things. So we never really thought we'd end up down the full just 9-to-5 path. And we'd have, like we being me and my brother, had books full of ideas over the years that we'd sort of researched, we'd looked up. We were sort of in the kind of startup world, like, reading TechCrunch and going to events and stuff. So we sort of knew the space and we wanted to do something. Nothing had really been the thing that we want to spend 10 years of our life doing and go through all that stuff. And as cliched as it is, that is true. Like you've got to be passionate about it because there's so many ups and downs that you being something you actually believe in makes a massive difference. So I think this idea just came up because of our need. Like we wanted to scratch our own itch. We realized that around the world in pockets, people like artists, athletes, creatives, like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates does it every year. He goes to a cabin in the middle of the wilderness to think. Artists and writers have done it for hundreds of years. We saw that other people were doing it, but we realized that the rest of us were missing out on it. We were caught in this kind of rat race, this cycle of like busyness and the kind of feeling like we have to be in the office at our desks all the time. So we wanted to unlock that for other people and we kind of realized like, I don't know, it was a bit of a bet, I guess, but we were pretty sure that other people would be looking for this as well. And I guess we did a bit of customer researching first. So we did a bit of a survey, sent it out to our friends and family and stuff and asked some questions like, how far would you be willing to drive on a Wednesday night? What would you be looking to pay? What sort of things would you look from the experience? So we sort of knew the general idea. And then we were also like deeply researching like cabins and all the designs and architecture blogs and all of that kind of stuff. On the business side though, I guess because we already knew that we wanted to build something and knew that this was going to be a business from day one, we approached it with a lot of frameworks and stuff like that from the early days. So one of the ones we started with early was it was from the Airbnb guys, and they sort of did this thing where they mapped out from a 1-star experience to a 10-star experience what the customer journey would be. So that was the thing we had on our parents' living room with Post-its. We were imagining what's a 1-star experience, like a real shit time. What's a 5-star experience, a normal time. But then what's a 10-star? So, you rock up to your cabin, you've got a personalized chef there cooking like all these like off-grid ingredients that like using indigenous species and things, like hand picked around the cabin, blah, 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 like all that kind of stuff. And that then helped us inform like what the core elements of the experience and the business model we wanted to deliver on. On the strategy side, I guess well,
before we go into the strategy, because I think you just raised an interesting point, which is like these core ingredients around the user experience. And I love that you went out to the market and talked to them first, because I think a lot of people assume they know what the market want, probably too much. And it sounds like you were like, nope, we're going to be curious. We're going to ask people, how far would you drive on a Wednesday night? What was the answer, by the way? What were people saying on a Wednesday night, how far they would be willing to drive?
It was basically what we've built the business around, which is between 1 and 3 hours. So
Really?
two was
On
the
a Wednesday
sweet spot.
night?
Yeah. So yeah, 2
Was
was
that surprising?
No, I guess we always thought it would be, we thought it'd be 1, but 2's the sort of sweet spot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But do you think it's surprising?
I think it's surprising.
How far
Like on
would
a
you
Wednesday
drive?
night, like I would do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like surprised that a lot of people would. But
Yeah. I guess it was 4, like we asked like, how far would you drive for this? So
Right,
it's
okay.
not just like to do
just
anything.
randomly. To
Like-
get some milk or something. Okay. So when you're talking to the market and you're doing your research, you're doing your due diligence, what were you thinking about regarding the user experience? Because you've talked about how you wanted to create something that was kind of like an instrument of nature. Not just like I'm staying in the woods, but you wanted it to be more of a ritual or something that felt like a memory or something. Like what were those things you were looking for those core ingredients to make it a good experience?
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple of things there, but first off is we have a phrase that I'm sure we borrowed from someone, like the best ones are, but called the little big things. And that's like all the little touches, like a bit of micro copy on the shampoo bottle, or the way that you just have to reach back like this and flick the light switch, and like the length of the step, or like in our UK cabins, we actually researched like the KFC ideal length of the seat and the bench at the little dinner booth, because they've researched the shit out of it. It's all based on like psychology and physiology and stuff like that.
But you researched
So,
like the what?
like the optimal size of like the bench and the depth of the bench and the length between the bench and the table and stuff for like the best experience.
That's intense,
Like,
dude.
Yeah.
Really?
So all of that,
Yeah.
like from day one, that's all the shit that we really focused on was the little big things. And like, from like the car park, for example, like, think of any hotel motel experience you've had.
Well, the car park's right next to the front door, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which people think like people want, it's convenient and stuff like that. But it also just feels the same as everything else. And you bring your day and whatever you're in with you, right? So we wanted to create this as this space that's intentional and is a like pure disconnection from the day to day.
Because in your experience, you have to park like away,
Yeah.
and then you have to walk to the cabin, so you can't even really see the car
Yeah.
from the
it's-
cabin. You feel like you're fully immersed.
Yeah,
You can't
so-
just walk out the front door, jump in the car, and take off.
Exactly.
You actually feel like something more distinctive of like, actually, I'm out here. I'm not right next to technology. I'm not able to just get out of here quickly.
Yeah. So usually you've driven down the highway a bit, then you go down a little like dirt path generally. You might have to open like a gate or two. So it's gradually getting further and further away from civilization, but
Yeah.
it's all within an hour or two.
I feel like you're Frodo leaving the Shire for the first
Yeah,
time. You're
pretty
like,
much.
I'm out here in the wilderness.
Yeah.
What else is around that? So like you wanted to disconnect people from their vehicle, because that sounds like more immersion potentially than feeling some more sense of security potentially. Like what is that exactly?
Yeah, it's I guess immersion, and it's it's forcing you to begin a new experience, I suppose. So like you've got the car, we actually have a sign that says park here, leave your worries, continue on foot, because that's the idea, and that's been there since day one. And you grab your little wheelbarrow, you put your bags in, and then there's always some kind of little path, whether it's like, I think our shortest one is about 100 meters, but longest is like a kilometer. And you go through this little path and you're like surrounded by trees, or like up on a mountain pass or down by a river, and like you're somewhere that feels like you are in the middle of nature. And we actually tell you to slow down, like don't rush, unless it's raining, I guess, but like don't rush, take your time, take it in and just stop. And like all you can hear are the birds, the wind in the trees. It instantly calms you down. And then when you get to the cabin, we've got a little ritual where essentially like people, when you get to an Airbnb, right, you'll generally go and like look in all the rooms, look in all the cupboards, like what's here. We tell people not to do that. You put your bag down, you go outside and you just stand there, whether it's like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. But that sort of really grounds you in the space, brings a bit of intentionality, and sort of leaves all of your stress behind. I mean, there's tons of science behind
That's
it.
quite like meditative.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. And that's
What is the science behind that? Because I'd like to understand that a little better, because people talk about it's good to get in nature, it's good to touch some grass sometimes. But what's the data behind this? Like what evidence have you found that might be obvious or even surprising to people?
Yeah, so there's actually decades of research behind it, but it's growing exponentially now as the sort of focus on well-being and wellness has continued to rise as people understand its importance for how we live, I suppose. But really, there's 3 core benefits. There's de-stressing. So nature, I think 1 hour out in nature decreases our cortisol by 20%.
Really?
Yeah, and things as like, fractal patterns, which are really common in nature. So just like a tree or a shell or something like that, the repeating patterns, bark and things, they can reduce our stress by up to 60% just by looking at it.
Looking at like bark and trees can make you happier.
Yeah, and it's been even proven you can look at it on a screen where it's more powerful than looking out the window or being in it, but just looking at it can actually decrease stress levels. Then there's creativity. So it's one that's we focus on because we think that it's one of the ones that has the biggest lift for humanity, because people don't think about going outdoors and its ability to help us think and improve our cognition. But that's one of the biggest things. It's been proven that 2 days out in nature can boost your creativity and problem-solving skills by up to 50%. We actually did a big study with Interbrand, part of DDB, the creative agency, and we sent their strategists, writers, and designers out to our cabins for 2 days, and then also did a control in the office, and they were working on real life briefs, and both the originality of ideas and the volume of ideas increased for the nature group.
Really?
And yeah.
What do you think caused that?
It's largely because of I can't remember the exact term, but it's basically 2 modes of your brain. There's one called diffuse thinking and one I think called let's call it tight or focused thinking. But basically your brain, when you're focused, your brain goes like this, like all the dots draw together. For everyone that's listening, it's basically like a whole bunch of dots. They're tight, they're collected, they're close together. That's focus. That's good for being intense, studying, things like that. To actually be creative and solve problems, you need them to be relaxed and further apart, because that's actually how dots that wouldn't be usually joined are connected by your mind.
So, I see. So like intense focus is like almost like a tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And then this is like opening your mind or your physiology or biology open up to more inputs. Like what do you think is triggering that?
More inputs. It's allowing your brain to sort of connect areas that you might not think are connected. And that's creativity really. Creativity is often not creating new things. It's creating new ways of seeing existing things. And it's sort of the way that you have shower ideas, that term, like that's because your brain is switched off. It's sort of free thinking and connecting stuff. Or it's why Einstein and Steve Jobs used to go for hikes in nature to come up with ideas. They'd do a lot of study and thinking, and then they'd go outside, and that's where they'd come up with everything. And Bill Gates does it once a year. He calls it Think Week. He goes to a cabin in the woods for a week to do his whole year of strategic planning and thinking and stuff like that. Because you've got to, like we have a saying, but it's basically you've got to switch off to be switched on. And it's something.
You've got to switch off to be switched on.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like I need some of that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. In sports, they've got which you would know more than most, they've got a term called periodization.
I don't know about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more like running, but it's basically switching off. So like if you're training for a marathon, you're not going to do a marathon every day. Okay. You're going to gradually get up to it. You're going to have some rest. You're going to come back. You're going to have some rest. If you're a peak athlete, you're not sprinting and operating at 110% all the time because you're going to burn out. So what those of us in creative industries in the corporate world do is the exact opposite. We're like throwing ourselves 110% at problems, at stuff every day. We're having late meetings. We're having back-to-back meetings, which are scientifically shown just to like fuck your brain. And we're doing all this stuff because we think that's how you get the best output, because more is better. But that's actually like totally counter to it. You actually need to step back, relax, go for a walk, go out to nature, take some time off midweek. That will make you better at thinking and at everything, really.
I just love this idea that like getting out in nature can actually inspire the brain to be more creative. And I've found moments where I get the largest influx of creativity is typically when I'm traveling
Mhm.
and I'm really paying attention to the environment or a new space.
Yeah.
Being in a new room or a new location and just having some alone time to think is where I just get flooded
Yeah.
with ideas. What else about the part of nature and the immersion of it do you think can help the mind?
It's it's a good question. It's largely around that sort of reducing stress and calming our nervous system. So being out there promotes the parasympathetic nervous system, so the opposite of fight and flight, but the one that calms you down. And that's important because these days with, technology and social media and everything, like everything's primed to keep us in fight or flight. So you really need to switch off. The other big effect that I haven't mentioned is connection. So this one sounds like on the face of it, like a little bit more wishy-washy, but in the evidence and the practical experience, it's super powerful. And that's essentially, it's awe-inspiring landscapes. So things that are, bigger and make you feel small, which is out in nature, or just being out there, it helps you feel more connected to yourself or others. And so it's basically been proven to improve relationships, to offset depression and anxiety, and basically help you, think through things, have more of an open mind, less judgmental, and actually feel closer to each other, like with the awe part, because your worries feel more insignificant, essentially, because you're out under the stars, you're in this massive forest, like all the shit that you're worried about in a day-to-day scenario, because you're in this stressful mindset, and just like on, sort of all disappears. And that's one of the key benefits of nature.
Clients want it all. A slick-looking website that can run their business and scale with their success. Wix Studio is built for that. Plan out your client's whole site in seconds with AI-powered site mapping and wireframing. Then when everyone's on the same page, jump into the creative, starting off in Figma or in the Wix Studio editor with super precise layouting tools like Grid, Stack, and Flexbox. Go above and beyond the brief with no-code animations, custom CSS, and built-in business solutions. And make your whole vision responsive in a click. And there's zero need to break a sweat when clients grow fast. A dynamic CMS with global design settings and reusable assets lets you turn one page into hundreds. Design smoother and deliver sooner. Go to wixstudio.com.
What are the specific components of that experience that are important, like wind, looking at fractal shells? Like what are all those little details?
Simply, it's just being there, really. It's like that's why that ritual that we tell people to do when they arrive, for example, is just turn around, stand on the deck and look and be there. Like that's simply just being out in nature, seeing the spaces, like seeing the trees, not having all of the inputs of the modern world as well. That's just enough to essentially like just deeply calm down.
Yeah.
There are tons of like little things as well, like trees, for example. They release this chemical called phytoncides, I think it's called, but it's essentially like this hormone that they release to combat like negative pathogens and stuff like that. But when we breathe it, it basically has an effect of boosting our immune system and reducing cortisol levels. So like just by being around trees, you're breathing this stuff in that calms you down, essentially.
So rather than supplements, we just need some more trees.
Pretty much, yeah. We've often had a bit of we've never done it, but there's some kind of marketing angle there where like it's basically some kind of pill. Like, you can have the benefits of a lot of these supplements and stuff that people are talking about in the wellness industry just from literally being outside.
Yeah.
And yeah.
This sounds like so foreign. It sounds so like ancient and ritualistic, but it's quite simple. And I think what the beauty of this is you're not trying to over-engineer this thing. You're like, nature is already there. We already have a relationship with it. It's just about going back and connecting with it.
Yeah.
What type of outcomes have you seen? What type of experiences have people had? What's been the biggest volume of feedback that you were surprised to get?
I guess like luckily for us, a lot of it just confirming what we hoped, which is people, the biggest things we hear back when we say describe what the time was like is peace and quiet. Like calm is the third highest word. So it's just people just feel this resounding sense of calmness when they're out there because it's just so different than that day-to-day energy stressful and busyness that we're usually in, and expectations away from all of that. And we've had people that come and say like 8 times in a year and stuff like that. We have people that do like a 3-day retreat at the beginning of every year now, like religiously. I had one amazing customer it was like her first sort of foray into getting outdoors, like into these wild spaces. And now she's got a tattoo of the sigil. We have these little like sigils for each cabin to identify them. And she's got a tattoo of that on her foot, which is just like amazing, like super cool, because it was her entry point into nature. And that's part of what we want to do. Is a lot of people get it and we're helping them come back more like easily and more often when they need it. But so many people didn't really realize how powerful nature is. And we want to help them, whether it's unyoked, like business wise, we want them to come back. But if it's just them going to the park at lunch or hiking on a weekend to the national park, like that's a huge win for us as well.
And if you look at the human species, we're collectively getting more and more disconnected from these experiences, right? Because we wake up in a box, we drive in a box, we stare at our box, we go to work and we sit at a box in another box, and it just feels like everything's so structured or systematic.
Yep.
I can imagine this feels quite just open and like almost like time's frozen and you're kind of escaping or something like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the problem of people getting more disconnected from nature, and do you think it's getting worse?
I think, I can't remember the exact stat. There's a study that I just recently proved that we're our most disconnected from nature, like connection to nature is at its lowest level ever or something like that. And
depression and anxiety is at an all-time high.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
do you think these two are correlated?
I mean, the science says yes. I mean, there's a billion other variables and like genes and all that kind of stuff.
But if we take the science out of it, if we talk purely from your experience, like what do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes. I think being in the sort of cultural expectations around the like 9 to 5, as we'll call it, it is like, you have to be on all the time. You have to be performing. You have to be ambitious. You have to be like, we've got so many apps just to communicate with people that sometimes people are just avoiding and ghosting their friends because you have to be communicated across 10 different channels all the time. And there's an expectation that you have a response right away. So just life has too many expectations on it at the moment. And that's been generally brought from technology because it's in their benefit for us to be using it all the time. But I think it's created this sort of artificial feeling, which is culture, that makes us stressed, anxious, and guilty for actually wanting to like do nothing for a while. And that's what we're trying to do, I guess, is help people realize like, hey, it's not actually bad to like do nothing. Like, if you said, hey, I'm going to do nothing for a while, you'd get so many weird looks, right? And like being bored is a negative thing.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like,
dude, being bored is the best. Like I got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Cool.
And we're big on like no TV.
Yep.
They don't know what a iPad is. They don't have access to apps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And watching a child be consumed by dopamine-driven educational shows, or like turning the television off and just watching them get bored for 20 minutes and throw a tantrum, and then get really creative and go create stuff. It just goes to show, like in the innocence of a child, how much they can make their own fun.
Yeah,
it just goes to show how much maybe we as adults are doing the same thing.
Exactly,
where we're just constantly chasing these dopamine hits on our phones, our devices, in the workplace, through our friends. And we're seeing an increase in depression and anxiety. It does sound like just the simplicity of this idea is like, it seems like a big deal, but this is a big deal because it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
And it should.
Exactly. And that's to go back to one of your earlier questions about some of the things we've done in the experience to do that. Like from the beginning, it was intentional, those little big things, designing moments in the user experience to help people, I guess, usher in that, because it is such a foreign concept to do nothing, to slow down at the moment. That, I mean, a lot of our early feedback is like people love the brand, they really want to be part of it, but no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't be alone. I couldn't be out there. So we create those moments. So like from the beginning, we actually force everyone to hand grind their coffee beans.
Yeah, I saw that on the website.
Yeah.
I was like, hand grind your own coffee beans.
Yeah.
Why those little details?
Because it's sort of, again, it's juxtaposes between all the other experiences, but the idea is creating rituals out of routines. So coffee is something, it's a routine. You've got your little shop, you go there 3 times a day or whatever. You've got your little pod machine, you just press it, you get it. It's like this quick thing that you don't think about. Whereas we turn it into like a mindful moment that helps you slow down. So you put your beans in, you go back to the bed, you grind your beans slowly while the sun's coming up, or you're listening to the birds and just looking out at nature. And it's like you're not doing anything else. You're just slowing down, and it helps you get into that pace. And it's the same thing, we've got nothing digital in the cabin. So we've got tape decks with cassettes. We've got lots of books, and there's not that much in there. There's everything.
Everything's very tangible. Everything's very physical, which I like, because it's we play music on our phones now.
Yeah.
But getting out a cassette and putting it into a cassette player and then pressing a button and then having the music, that's a whole different experience.
Exactly. And
you're making rituals out of music as well.
Yeah, and you've got to, the tape runs out, so you got to turn it over and stuff like that. And it's like becomes more intentional and mindful with everything that you do. And we've created recipes with lots of famous chefs that are all hand making pasta dough and stuff like that. So it's all creating these little moments that force people to slow down and realize like, oh, I can actually be like just doing stuff, or sitting and waiting for that dough to rise and sitting on a hammock outside watching the trees and stuff like that. And it's sort of easing them into the fact that, hey, you can be quiet, be slow, and it's actually good for you, not a negative thing.
And the design of the cabins is quite beautiful. I understand that you've got a quite simplistic design. They're all kind of the similar kind of concepts. What's the idea behind the design? Like before, you were saying about how you research how KFC have like the perfect seating between like the depth of the bench, etc. Like all these little things. What was the holistic intention of that design, and what were you going for?
I guess a few things. Like first off, there's 3 components that we design the cabins around and build them like for the last 8 years. Desirability, serviceability, and longevity.
Desirability, serviceability, and longevity. Okay.
So desirability was what we were talking about before with the little big things. Like, are the steps the perfect length? Like, can the step also act as a sort of platform for you to lean against and read and eat? Or is the light switch in the right place and stuff like that? And it's sort of making a frictionless experience in the right ways. And researching stuff from like what do customers want? Like, do they want do they want a hot shower? Like, obviously, yes. And like things like that. Serviceability is all around, like, so one of the other parts of the business is essentially we partner with private landowners to enable people to access these places. And we give them a split of the revenue for doing the housekeeping and operational management. We provide them with all the tools. So we've designed an app over the last 8 years that guides them through, and the whole idea is to make it as quick and easy as possible. So we design the cabins with that in mind. So our first cabin called Miguel, we can get onto why we named the cabins, but the first cabin, Miguel, had
Wait, why did you name the cabins?
we basically named them after people that were unyoked. So like unyoked, the word technically means to be set free.
Okay.
And that's what
I love the name, by the way. It's one of the first things I was like, that's such a good name.
Yeah. It's also, it's like unique. It actually means that, and the website was available back in the day. So, tick, tick, tick. But the cabins were named after, people that we had met traveling around the world who were unyoked, who sort of were people that were set free, that were sort of not adhering to those, those shackles, those expectations that we talked about before culturally. And the idea was you'd stay, at Miguel, and you bring a little bit of Miguel home with you, essentially. Miguel was this Spanish guy that I met with a friend in Chiang Mai. We were out in the mountains doing just a self-guided hike, and we sat down in this river to have some lunch. And this guy just jumps up from the river. He's just lying there relaxing in the middle of the jungle. And he's just this Spanish guy who left his law firm in Spain, has been traveling around for like a year and a half, and just super chill, super relaxed and calm, smart guy, but just sort of finding his own way in life now. And that was Miguel, was the first cabin. It's like, we want you to be a little bit like this guy, like just a little bit like set free.
Does he know about this?
I don't think so. Like we didn't get any details.
Miguel, if you're watching, you've inspired a generation.
But back to the design, the first cabin had this sunken bed, sunken mattress. So it was like flush with this platform. So
also, like the floor is flush with the bed.
It was sort of raised on a bit of a podium, but then it was flush.
Yeah.
So it just looked beautiful, but it was a bitch to clean. And we started cleaning them ourselves to take the whole thing back to first principle and like design the process.
What do you mean by first principle? Sorry to keep going on the segues here.
No.
Yeah, I want to get these little insights.
Just basically taking it back to like the lowest possible level, like the most basic sort of interpretation. So instead of just assuming like, hey, this is a small house, let's let the cleaners do their job and clean it like a small house, we wanted to take it all the way back to be like, okay, what do you clean first? What do you need to do? Like, what's the order of things you need to do? Like, why? What sort of cleaning products do you use? Like, unpack the whole entire process so we could make sure that it was as easy and most efficient as possible, because we wanted to be partnering with people that weren't trained cleaners and enabling them to do this with minimal effort so we could open up these beautiful places.
Okay. So back to Miguel.
So yeah, it had this sunken bed that looked amazing, but we soft launched in November 2016 and then launched officially in March 2017. So summer. And we were cleaning these things in summer in Kangaroo Valley was the first location. And it's so hot as hell, right? And we were like reaching over the bed, trying to tuck this corner in and this corner in, dripping with sweat, it all getting like creased and stuff. And we quickly realized like this is not, like it looks great, so it's really desirable, but it's not serviceable. So if we're going to scale, which we always thought about from the beginning, like operations have to be scalable, we've got to design this differently. So we quickly flipped over to having just the mattress like sitting on a platform, which still looks great, but it means that it's just like shitloads easier to clean. And we've made lots of decisions like that, like where the drawers are located, like how things open and close, what systems we use, how the composting toilet works, and all these things with serviceability in mind. Because essentially we're running single room boutique hotel rooms in hard to get to locations without phone reception with 3 cabins per cleaner, essentially. So
it sounds like it's the complete opposite of everything that you would find on Airbnb.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right? You're like, I want close proximity. This is out in the wilderness. I want to park next to the front door. No, we're going to make you walk. Like, it just seems like there's all these opposites that are playing out.
Yeah, and that's why no one had really done it before, so because it was hard, and it's still generally what people don't quite get. They see the shiny cool brand, they see the cool experience, and they're like, we'll do this too. But often people forget that operational backbone, and because we approached this from, hey, if this works, we want it to be a real something. We knew that operations from the beginning was something we need to focus on, so we like over focused on that. We hired an ex-technical ops lead from Uber, like in our sort of early years, to come on board, like probably before we needed to help scale that whole systems, processes, automation side. Because we knew that would be sort of a competitive advantage of the business over the long term.
Okay. I want to come back to that in a moment. The last one here is longevity.
Longevity is around, I guess, the durability, the materials and that sort of stuff. So we are as responsible as we can in terms of sustainability, like sourcing the materials and things. They also want to be able to last as long as possible. So these cabins like out in the elements, they're not really moving around much, but they need to be able to be. And they've got a lot of people going through, occupancy in those early years was like 97%. And then sort of, like 80s, like for most of the years. So lots of foot traffic, lots of usage, lots of sun, lots of rain, lots of wind. So it's important that we chose materials that were easy to maintain, cheap to replace, and also have like tons of life for them as well without being super expensive and stuff.
Now, what I love about this is that you've built this beautiful brand to create this experience where people can escape, calm down. But at the same time, I know what it takes to build a business. And I'm sure there was a tremendous amount of headaches, stress, logistics, and a lot of things that you had to go through. So Cameron, you were told that cabins in the woods were too expensive and it would never work. Not only that, you've directly taken on Airbnb. You've collaborated with Matthew McConaughey and Apple, expanded into Europe, and raised over $35 million. Why were you so hell-bent on making this work and building a business out of this?
I think simply because it's something that we believed in. Like it's, and again, we being me and my brother, we're twins, so it kind of sort of comes with the territory. But yeah, I think it's basically because it's something that we believed in. It sounds cliched, but it's like legitimately we were passionate about it, and it's only been reinforced over the years. Like I remember a time when Chris and I were launching the Melbourne cabins, like the first ones, and we were digging the greywater trenches ourselves, and it was like icy as hell, like winter down there. It was an unseasonably cold winter, I think. So I was basically wearing thongs. We weren't prepared for it at all. Real hard work with like freezing cold. But then we'd stop and pull up the shovel and look around, and it's just surrounded by the sort of Pyrenees Mountains to the west of Melbourne, like nothing but wind and birds, and you just instantly feel calm and have this smile on your face. And that has just been repeated so much over the years that just we know what we're doing has the impact that like it says what it does. It does what it says on the bottle. And that's super rewarding. It's just, we believe in it, we need it and want it. And
So as you're building the business, you're also using the product,
pretty much, yeah.
trying to kind of decompress
Yeah.
as you're stressed, building the business. Yeah.
Exactly. And it just reinforces why we started it. And, the fact that we can be creative and build something from scratch and come up with all these cool ideas and partnerships at the same time as like legitimately doing something good. Like that's the sort of, the holy grail.
Now, this whole thing started with you handing out flyers to landowners, because I can only imagine, here's this guy in thongs showing up to my house, handing me a flyer about Unyoked and how he wants to build this Airbnb rival. Like, what was that early pushback from people? Like, surely it wasn't a simple journey at the start. I'm sure there was a point where it was difficult to get traction.
I guess it's just, I don't know how like smart of an answer this is to the audience, but it's basically like, you got to be smart and do things right, which I'll explain how we did it, but it's really just hard work as well, like to some degree. Like, so we, for our first locations, so we were lucky in the fact that Airbnb had already laid the groundwork for the sharing economy. So people were already aware that, hey, I can have strangers on my property and this is a thing that everyone's doing. So it was in its early days, but that was really crucial. If we had have timed this before Airbnb, no one would have let us on their properties. No one would have said, yeah, sure, I'll put a cabin down in this paddock and let some strangers on my land and like light a fire and stuff. Like that would never have happened. So that was a critical building block around timing. Then we sort of strategically targeted our areas. So we knew that the Southern Highlands in New South Wales are sort of, I guess, a really desirable area. So it's sort of from the nature side, it feels a bit different than just everyone's backyard. Like it's really lush, it's subtropical, lots of pine trees and things as well. So it's somewhere that people would see as almost exotic, would bring the demand side. Then we also sort of did a lot of research and found that the median land size was quite big. The median incomes was not that big. So it'd be availability of properties, but also people that wanted to actually do it and earn some extra money. And then, we printed thousands of these postcards. We did a mail drop. We drove around looking at what we thought could be a good property. We used Google Maps and stuff like that in a relatively unsophisticated way to start with. And then we basically built this huge pipeline, had sort of some categorization steps of like, how big's your land, all this kind of stuff. Lots of phone calls, and then went and visited a whole ton of sites. And that's where the hard work comes in. Like you just got to do the right stuff, but you got to have the right inputs coming into it, I guess. Our first site, like we got a lot close actually in those early days, but the first one was this, we still have a cabin on his property now. They're on Miguel's property. He was called Brian. Well, he is called Brian.
I like how you said they're on Miguel's property.
Yeah.
Miguel's not on their property.
Yeah. No, Miguel's on their property. And it was, Brian sort of invited us in and took us in his ute up to his favorite camping spot. And it was this place that's just like through a few paddocks up this dirt track. And it's this beautiful clearing surrounded by subtropical forest with a view out. And he's like, this is the spot that I come every year to camp by myself, and I want to help other people access it.
Wow.
And
they were on board. They were like, this is a cool idea. I want to share this.
Yeah.
Because there would be pride in that. This is my land. This is my favorite spot.
Yeah.
Other people can enjoy it. Fantastic.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things is all of our hosts have that desire. Like none of them are just about making money. Like it's never just about that. That definitely helps. But it's about wanting to share what they have, their little paradise, their beautiful part of nature, and the benefits they see with it with other people as well.
So how did you find the right people? Because I can imagine out in the country, phone calls, letterbox drops, you would have got some weird characters calling you and making some strange requests.
Yeah, we were probably a bit too nice as well. Like we went to a lot and like saw a lot of properties we probably knew weren't going to work the minute we walked onto them, but we didn't want to say that because they were so excited. So we'd go through like hour-long meetings and have tea and biscuits and stuff when we instantly knew like, okay, this isn't going to work for us. But there's some criteria that we still use now. Like mainly it's about the property, but then you also have the partner that's like the right level of support. So we know what sort of person we want to look for and what sort of character traits we want. And the property, it had to be 2-wheel drive accessible. You had to be able to feel alone from the location. So we still have a thing. I can't remember the last time someone's actually done it, but we call it the naked test, where you can't stand on the deck of the cabin naked and not have that little feeling in the back of your neck that someone could walk past, then we don't put the cabin there because you've got to feel totally relaxed and calm.
Do you guys actually do this?
We used to at the beginning, but yeah, I don't think anyone does now. It's just more of a vibe.
Could be a HR issue these days.
Yeah.
So the naked test was like, I want to feel completely isolated.
Yeah, but be safe and conveniently located close to the city. But
because you don't want to like feel like you're in someone's property or in their backyard. You want to feel like you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that sort of secluded aspect, like still, extremely safe and conveniently located, but that seclusion is just so different than anything else. And it's that, I don't know, like I just described it as that feeling in the back of your neck where you just like, don't think anyone is going to come by at all. Like you're totally calm, you're totally alone, you can just totally relax. Whereas like, at 5-star resorts and stuff, you might have your own little villa, but like someone could walk past at any stage and stuff like that. It's just a different level of relaxing and sort of resetting that is able to happen. And that is what Unyoked is so unique for offering. Like that's a critical part from our first property to even now like delivering.
Now, I think that this model is super attractive. I can only imagine that you've had a ton of people try to recreate this or compete with you guys. How have you dealt with competitors trying to, I guess, curtail off what you've worked so hard to create?
I guess we haven't really had to that much, like because we've had that approach of uncompromising on the vision, flexible in the details. Like we sort of zig where they zag. We're still, I guess, the sort of like that authentic nature of the Unyoked brand and the way we've built the business is still quite differentiated. But on the other side as well, we kind of see it as a positive thing in some ways because everyone is raising the awareness for these needs, and then we're the best way to do it. So it sort of gets people, it widens the market, deepens the market, but then we might end up with them as customers anyway in the end. But we've been lucky. We've been able to still stay differentiated. Like no one's been able to replicate exactly what we do because of all those different pieces that are intertwined and interconnected of how we do what we do. Like a lot of them see the shiny brand, see the cool experience, but miss the operations, or they don't have enough authenticity in their brands and things. But it's kind of cool. There's a lot of people doing slightly different takes on it around the world as well, which is awesome. And like we've met a bunch of the founders and stuff like that, and quite inspiring stories. And whether they've like sort of looked at our model and tried to do it, or whether they've come up with it their own, it's like it is kind of cool to see that out there.
Yeah.
It will sort of look fast forwarding as a business goal. That one of the benefits is there'll probably be a bunch of inorganic growth opportunity. Like there's a lot of people have sort of tried it and they're kind of subscale. They're probably realizing it's quite capital intensive, it's quite difficult, and sort of just floating at sort of 10, 20, 30 cabins. And that could be a good opportunity for us to come and sort of bring them into the fold and sort of grow a little bit that way and sort of help more people reach nature in other ways.
Yeah, I think someone said this recently. I was watching it, and it said that if you don't celebrate your competition, realize that you don't have a game to play.
Yeah.
And it was like, I've seen competitors come up to the market and like literally like similar names to us, similar visual identity systems. I'm like, come on, at least like play in this space, but like be different. For you guys, I can imagine there's probably slight frustration. Like, man, we've like carved the way and we put a lot of time and energy into this. What's your thoughts on people that see an opportunity work and then they just see the dollar signs and then they just want to replicate the success versus caring about the actual solution that you're trying to solve?
I guess I just like, you're definitely frustrated to start with, but then you realize like it is also a good thing because it forces you to realize like we've got to kind of tick on every single thing that we do. The question is just, is it unyoked? And that's actually a question of like, have we had to like deviate from our strategy and our vision and stuff? Like we make sure that we don't, because it's all these people trying to sort of copy, they can't authentically do it. So if we stay authentic to ourselves and making sure that we don't deviate and become more mainstream or sort of give up on some of our values and our vision. So I think it's a positive thing from that side. On the understanding people, like I guess it's so foreign to me. Like I wouldn't want to see another idea and just like copy it exactly. And I think I'd always want to either put a spin on it, do some different version, or like, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel as interesting and rewarding sort of building something from scratch.
Now, one of the craziest campaigns that you've had in the history of the company is working with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And I understand you guys collaborated with Wild Turkey and the brand behind that, and Mr. McConaughey. Talk me through that. Like, how did that connection happen? How did you guys get in touch? Where did the idea come from? Because I can only imagine that there would have been a bit of pressure on that. But I know the outcome was that you guys had hundreds and hundreds of articles written about what you guys created.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was even now, like, there was this moment, and I'll come back to the beginning question, but there's this moment when we were over in LA, me and Chris, and we went down to Joshua Tree in between shooting. We had this moment, we were in Joshua Tree watching the sunset, and we only had like 4 cabins or maybe 6 cabins at that stage. And we were literally meeting Matthew McConaughey the next day to do this filming thing with him. And we were like, what the fuck? Like, why?
How did you guys even connect?
How did we get
So you had 4 cabins at this point.
Yeah. So
and you're in LA. Like, how did you guys link up?
It's a funny story. So essentially, like, Matthew McConaughey is the creative director for this brand, Wild Turkey. And they had this sort of talk show thing where he was interviewing founders, and it was meant to be about sort of people who represented sort of going back to older times, helping people slow down, like do things with their hands, be mindful. And Australia is one of the biggest markets for Wild Turkey, I've guessed, but their head of guest PR had basically found us Unyoked and said these guys would be perfect. McConaughey had said, I want these guys. And then they basically had just been trying to reach out to us for like, I don't even know, I think it was like 6 months, but they were like, we were back then like literally just the 2 of us. We've never been that good on emails. We prioritized doing the business. And they kept on trying to hit us up. We were just basically, it was in one of our partnerships folder with all the billions of other things, which we were lucky enough to have. And then I think one night this person was home with her partner. I think they were going to bed or something maybe. And basically was like, McConaughey's been asking for these guys, not sure where they are. And then her partner was like, oh, do you mean Chris and Cam? And it turns out that her partner knew Chris from, like, my brother from somewhere randomly. He's like, jumps on WhatsApp and says, Chris, you better answer your fucking emails. Like, Matthew McConaughey is there. And then we picked it up and we're like, okay, cool. So basically we got flown over to LA to do this filming where he sort of interviewed us about the business and starting. And that was all it was going to be. But then we pitched the cabin concept. We were like, look, we think it's really aligned. What would you say to building a cabin together? And then it kind of went through the creative process and everything, and they ticked off on it. And we had, collaborative design sessions with McConaughey on the phone, sort of being like, do you want this material? Do you want this material? What sort of vibes you after? And we designed this sort of bespoke cabin called the Reserve, which is up Yarramalong Valley in outside of Sydney. So still there, still operating. And it was sort of, like bespokely designed experience where we have like individual like field guides, which are the little books in the cabins. We have slightly different experiential elements. And then he flew over to Sydney to launch it. We launched it on the green area just above, I can't remember what it's called, but it's just above the Opera House, and had tons of press and stuff like that. It's like, super weird, but super cool.
What was going through your head at this time? You're being interviewed by Mr. McConaughey, then you guys are essentially business partners and doing a collaboration on a design. What was happening for you guys at that point? Because I can only imagine the influx of additional attention and requests that would have come from that.
I guess what that moment where we were sitting in Joshua Tree and sort of realizing like what is going on, but one of the key things was just a reminder to make sure that you like, I guess, relish those opportunities and you sort of actually like feel what's happening every once in a while. Like, as a founder, you're head down running 1,000,000 miles an hour, like just the world's just passing you by like so often. I'm sure that you get it like, it's already halfway through October right now, right? Like, where's that year gone? Whereas that sort of moment sitting there made us realize like, hey, this is pretty amazing to have done this. Like, we've really built something cool. We're on the right track. Like, even if it doesn't go well, like, this is a pretty cool moment.
I love this, and there's these spontaneous moments that happen in business where you kind of have to like pinch yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I write about this in my book where there's like, you're basically imagining yourself and your business as a campfire in a little village.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other campfires and empires out there in the world, and you're trying to create like these little pathways between you and them. So you establish this link essentially with, Matthew McConaughey, and then you guys are going back and forth sharing ideas and commerce. When you're building this brand and you get an adjacency like that, or you get a partnership like that, how do you leverage that to then create more of those moments and more of those opportunities? And I'm not saying you're doing this with malicious intent, but how do you then leverage
these moments to make the most out of them so you can scale this business and see out the vision?
It's a good question. It's sort of, we designed these brand partnerships in that way. So like, so another example is our partnership with Apple. So we did, we called it field recordings. We actually did one ourselves beforehand, but we essentially partnered with Apple, like huge reach, huge credibility, like, that's a dream to be able to have done that with them. They don't do many collaborations. And then field recordings was where we sent down, I think it was 6 relatively well-known musicians to our cabins. They went down and basically had to write an original track.
Really?
Yeah, that was inspired by their time down there. So it was sort of using the nature as the creative process. So it was highlighting that benefit of nature being creativity. And then they went back to the studio, they recorded the original track, and we launched it on the front page of Apple Music and basically had an album out called Field Recordings. Yeah.
Oh my God. And then you put it on cassette and then
exactly. It's in cassette.
So it's on cassette.
It's on cassettes in the cabins. So it's got really strong brand. It's got awesome, it highlights the benefits of one of the benefits of nature. It has a real tangible element to it as well. And it's super unique. We've approached that with all of our brand partnerships to sort of really make sure that you deliver those results. But you have a shitload of fun while you're doing it as well.
Now, I know you guys have rejected some of these requests as well. At what point, when you get approached by a big brand, are you like, it's just, it really goes against the values, the monetary components there, but how do you maintain the purest mentality of like, this is our brand, this is our promise, we no matter how good this offer is, we don't want to take it?
It's that, for us, it's that question of like, is it unyoked? And it's like, if we weren't in the company and we woke up and saw this collaboration, would we be like, what the hell is that?
Sellouts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Does it feel weird? And we've, maybe to our detriment over the years, we've probably said no to some that tons of other brands and some of our competitors have said yes to. But I think it's been important and we made the right calls because it's things that didn't truly align with the brand and like the opposite of our values and stuff like that.
So Cam, now you've expanded into the UK and Europe as we touched on before. What's been the biggest cultural difference that you found from the Australian market and then going into the UK and Europe?
Probably the biggest one is that the UK guys all wanted to go to the pub. so that was the most common question we got at the beginning.
Instead of like, come see my property, they're like, let's get a pint.
Yeah, well, the customers, they were like, we love this, but where's the nearest pub for me to go get?
So they're like,
where can I get a pint?
Alcohol, man?
Yeah. Where can I get a pint and my roast, And so it was interesting because we actually had to build to manage that and be like, no, you're not staying at like a little countryside house where you go to the local pub like you usually do. Like this is staying on the property and being in nature. So we're not going to tell you where the pub is. Like, don't go. But that was pretty much it, really. Like, interestingly, one of the reasons why we launched in the UK was because like cultural propensity, like they sort of the same as Australia. We knew that they wanted this and needed this. Lots of land, like you wouldn't think it's a small island, but like tons of land, tons of farming, tons of big properties. Lots of people that would, on the host side, would need it. Like after the exit from the EU, lots of farmers looking for ways to diversify revenue. A lot of the estates are asset rich, cash poor, so they're looking for ways again to diversify revenue, bring in more cash, and that's pretty much it. But on the consumer side, they need it almost more than Australians because I think we were talking about this before we started, but in Australia, we have access to nature. It's sort of a artificial constraint that we don't go to it. It's all around us. And we're at the beach on the weekends, we're going hiking, but we don't spend enough time in there. Whereas in the UK, like if you live in London, you're in the city. Like it's 2 hours to get across the other side of the city on public transport, let alone get out of there. And most people don't have a car. So you're sort of in this position where you really need to get out of the city, get out to nature. So we actually found that the juxtaposition between that, like being in King's Cross Station and then catching a train for an hour and being at one of our cabins is so powerful that it's even more of a need, but also more of a powerful impact than Australia.
What kind of feedback were you getting that was different in the UK and London than you were getting here?
I don't think we were getting that much different feedback. It was more on the stuff that we built to start with, I guess. So going back a few steps. So when we knew that we wanted to internationalize, we targeted the UK first for those reasons because we knew it would work. It's the same language. It's got all the cultural propensity. It's got the land. It's got the need for it. And we had this epic staff member, a friend now called Alex, who was from the UK. So he was working with us for a few years in Australia and basically wanted to go over to the UK and start it. So that was really a critical part. Like instead of finding someone new and training them up on all those things we talked about, like the little big things, the uncompromising on the vision and all that, we had someone that knew the ins and outs of Unyoked. So we put him over in the UK. While he was over there, the main thing he started with was finding manufacturers. So we have to build the cabins. We're not shipping them from Australia. So he was largely focused on that side. And then at the same time, we were doing a lot of customer research. So we did surveys. We found out things like, would you go the same distance? Like, how are you going to get there? And that's a key difference. Like most people in London don't have cars. So we had to find locations that were accessible by train and maybe a short taxi ride. So we did partnerships with local taxis to bring down the cost and make that more convenient. And we had to, small things like we put milk in the cabins because lots of people have tea over there and they have milk with their tea.
Yeah, we got to make your own milk.
Yeah. Slowly.
There's a cow outside.
yeah. That's the Unyoked experience.
Yeah.
So that was actually some feedback we got was like, where's the milk? Because we don't provide milk in Australian cabins because it's like, there's just too many different types of milk to provide these days and like which one's the right sustainable one and all that. So we just don't do it. But in the UK, we have to provide milk because it was an expectation. So we did the customer surveys to find out what parts we need to tweak. Then on the supply side, we did a lot of research on the environment. So obviously it gets a lot colder over there. So we had to tweak some of our builds basically to be like extra insulation, had to actually get heated batteries for the solar to keep them running at the same levels of efficiency, and had to research all kind of things like water pipes, like how we would put them under the ground without them freezing and all of this kind of stuff. On the host side, we tried to, if you do a lot of research on platforms, like two-sided platforms, you got to decide like how to, start the supply side. So we realized that by going out mass to like farmers and things like that, like we did in Australia, was probably going to take a little too much time. And we had all these learnings about the right sort of properties we wanted. So we were able to target estates. So these are sort of the aristocracy, and these are like large properties. They've got cleaning and maintenance people already on there. They're looking for ways to diversify income. So they're already like out searching for things. And we could essentially become this plug and play thing where we've got like 5 years of traction in Australia, a huge global brand, like all the MPS and the operational structures. So they don't have to take a bet on us, and we can come and deliver just this solution for them that could really easily work. For us, they've got large properties with unique nature and support teams. So it just was this natural sort of fit. So that's how we sort of started, was we had our first place was actually on an estate that's quite famous and well known, and one of the head of it is actually the Lord, I suppose, is his official title, but is like X in line to the throne and stuff like that.
Wow.
We've got like dukes and duchesses now and things like that. It's very different like to Australia. But yeah, then we sort of launched with 6 cabins. So we didn't want to overdo it because it was coming into winter, and we're like, this is going to be our first like cold winter. So let's test and learn. We learned a lot that winter. Like,
what did you learn?
Mainly around the tech and the services and like the different sort of solar and the different sort of like, we had to have generators to back up those cabins because there wasn't enough sun during the day and that sort of stuff and things like that, just to tweak around it. And people's desirability to go in winter as well. So even though they're used to the cold over there from the consumer side, there's still a bit of a perception that people don't necessarily want to go out. So we made sure from all our positioning that we were like, this is insulated like your house. Like there's a little wood fire burner in there, like you will be cozy. And sort of one of our goals is like to lift that sort of seasonality up essentially and make people realize like you still can be out in these spaces really comfortably in the middle of winter.
It sounds like you're spending a tremendous amount of time like testing, learning, watching, iterating, fixing, adjusting, tweaking, like a lot of these little incremental adjustments to tune it. And then once you've figured out the recipe, then you are then pushing out and scaling in these countries? Yeah,
pretty much. Sort of the classic scientific method, really, like having a hypothesis, running some tests to test it, finding out, or like disproving it, having a new hypothesis, so on and so on. And
What's been the hardest thing about scaling this business? Because I can imagine that there's a significant amount of cash investment to get these up and established. Obviously, you got to make sure that they're occupied to keep the cash flow coming in. Like, what's been the hardest part about building all of this?
It's a great question, actually. I guess it depends what perspective you take, but it probably is the raising the capital for it, to be honest, because that's something that we've had the least experience with starting. I worked in a bank before, but didn't do any finance or anything like that. I actually dropped maths in year 10. And I was more on the creative sort of strategic thinking side of things. But it just requires so much from you. It's such a area that we don't know about in terms of didn't know about before starting in terms of valuations and structures and all of those sort of things in terms of how the investment comes in. But then on a personal and energy level, it's just, you got to be on 200% every single time for 8 meetings in a row every day. And really, all the passion coming through and everything. And it's and then getting all these negative responses and cynicism and stuff like that. So it can really burn you out. And I think it probably is the hardest part, actually, having to do that over and over until you hit profitability, obviously, which is the goal, which we're touch wood really close to. But otherwise, yeah, other challenges are like growing a team, making sure, as the founder, while you're doing the fundraising and managing the business, and actually we still do quite a bit of stuff ourselves. Our team is amazing and these days does most of the day-to-day, but Chris and I still do things. And for most years, actually we're hands-on quite a bit, managing that with then managing people, having to do things from, one day we'll be mapping out the strategic direction for 5 years and what are the ancillary revenue items we're going to have in 2029 for a financial model for the debt fund. And then that afternoon we'll be working out what kind of salt and pepper shaker should be in there and is this on brand and stuff like that. And or talking to a customer about their experience or something like that. So I think flying down from the bird's eye view to every other level can be quite jarring.
View back to the birds.
Yeah, exactly. that's, I wouldn't say it's necessarily hard, but that's one of the challenging things that you've got to get used to.
Now, another tricky thing that you might have to deal with is council regulations, government, local communities. What have been some of the obstacles you've faced internationally around council and regulations?
A good question. When we started, it was very similar to Uber, and it still is this in some areas, but it's a gray area. Some councils.
Uber wasn't a gray area. If you watched the documentary, they were breaking the law.
Yeah, true. Okay. Maybe we're not like Uber there, or we weren't. Let's not use that
not
analogy.
That Uber, but you're innovative like Uber.
Yeah. But they're essentially, there were, when we were starting, it was a lot of gray areas. We are like Airbnb, where the host, because they know the property the best, they're the ones with the local relationships and everything. They are the ones that need to sort of do the research and go and approach the council and then come to us once it's all been approved and everything. But getting those host levels of demand and comfort with that in the early days, was a bit harder because it was undefined. These things didn't really exist anywhere. So they weren't not in the council regulations, but they weren't in the council regulations either. So it was always depend on the council, the zone type, a whole bunch of different things depending on what state you were in and everything like that. So it was a bit of a minefield to sort of navigate of is it a gray area? Is it not allowed? Is it totally allowed? We weren't directly involved in that. The landowners were, but that was something we had to think about. One of the cool evolutions is, as with most sort of innovations, the regulatory environment catches up. So in New South Wales and Victoria, I'm pretty sure that you can now have a few of these on your rural land, which is most of the land outside in regional areas, without any sort of council approvals required, because they're helping sort of farmers and the sort of regional economies bring extra income in a sustainable way with the right kind of tourism and the right sort of things. So,
that's nice. Meanwhile, they're taxing us for spare bedrooms.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's give and take a bit.
You got to take what you can get.
Yeah.
So when it comes to these regulations, obviously, it just seems there's a lot of red tape you might have to kind of skate through to get the brand up and off the ground. When I guess you get to critical mass, like in Uber, now they have airports building entire sections of their business infrastructure to accommodate for this.
Yeah.
Is there a hope that in the future you'll be able to create some kind of fundamental change with how governments and councils think of these kind of businesses?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's already coming, and like we're definitely not the only ones doing. Like there's tons of people at the grassroots, like sort of pushing these, like, whether they're cabins, tiny houses, or whatever they are, agendas with the government, and I think that's been critical in sort of moving forward. But if we can help because they're so isolated, minimal impact, sustainable, and one of the biggest goals that they're doing is helping people connect with nature so they understand its value, so then they'll act in a more climate positive way in their lives, which is what we all need as well. So if we can do that in a way that's like the government says tick, it's ticking their boxes too. So it's got to be safe. You can't just chuck anything out there, and you can't just dig a hole and let the grey water go in and all that kind of stuff. Like I think as long as it's done in a responsible way, yeah, it's just something that can help so many people like offset sort of the agricultural impacts from climate change and all that kind of stuff.
And for you, like, what's the horizon look like? Are you trying to take this thing all across the globe to other countries? Where would you like to see the brands? What does the future look like?
I've been going back to that Nike of nature. Like that's our kind of goal. Like if we can be, that have someone sitting on their couch, like flicking through Instagram or like thinking about something cool they've seen out there, and like they have that same reaction with Unyoked as people do with Nike, with Headspace, with Calm. Like that's sort of where we want to go with the brand. But then we want to be, I guess, helping people connect with nature in a bunch of different ways. So we will go in different countries. Like I'd love to see this all around the place. It'd be amazing. But we also want to explore with like smaller cabins so people can go by themselves more often, and like also it can be better for lower socioeconomic groups. We want to have group sites so you can go in groups or with your team and with your business. We want to have really remote locations so you can go like really far out if you want to and stuff like that, and have like some fully extreme experiences and do tons more science and everything. But I guess just more of what we are doing, but in slightly different ways.
And what do you think really drives you to want to do this? Obviously, it requires a lot of work, a lot of love, a lot of attention. Like, what's the big motivator for you to push through all these boundaries to make this happen?
It's a good question. Like, definitely find the creating really rewarding, like building something from nothing, like being able to come up with an idea and have us and the team create something out, like that's just, wow, that's there, we did that. Like that's hugely rewarding. That's what really excites me. Like my partner often gets me in trouble for like working in inverted brackets on a Sunday. Whereas that's, for me, I'm not actually working. I'm like, that's where I've woken up and I've got this sick idea and I'm just excited to run at it and develop it and talk and like get the ideas down and write some notes and stuff. And like, that's what really drives me. So if I can, get through all the hard stuff of building the business and just do that would be amazing. But that's a huge thing. And then being able to, I guess, help our team as well. Like, big for Chris and I is like a startup is an opportunity that we see ourselves being lucky enough to have. Like, it's like a real life MBA. It's a chance to learn so much stuff that you'd never get the chance to learn, like across such a breadth of areas. So being able to help our team have those experiences, like regardless of whether they're here for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, and like helping them learn new things, do new things, like grow, that's super rewarding as well and a big tick.
And how important do you think the team is behind this? Obviously, having a good team is a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Are you trying to cultivate or foster a very distinctive type of culture to align with how you're building this business?
Yeah, I mean, team's everything. Like without the team, we wouldn't be where we are, like for sure. So it's, we've hired like a lot on values, like skills, but mainly values. So we've hired 4 unyoked people who get what we're doing. Like that's been one of our first things. We've hired a lot from like our community. So it's been people that just understand intimately what we're trying to do. That then usually translates with the right experience into doing great ideas. But then it's openness. It's like being able to be candid and collaborative. Like collaborative, that it all comes down to just that working together to get the best shit done. So fostering that, I think is something pretty unique that we do. Like we would collaborate, have a lot more meetings than most people would do. And like you'd get an input from people across the business that you wouldn't usually do in a normal place.
And then behind this, like, do you find that the community are getting together? Like, are people that are checking these locations out, getting together, meeting up, or the people that are hosting these places on their lands? Like, what are you seeing evolve out of the community organically?
It's one of the areas that we want to develop the most, so that that like physical community is like, that's why brands are what they are these days, is because, things like the church and religion have disappeared pretty much. So people are lacking a community. It's why like fitness and run clubs are so big, is because people are searching for meaning. And that's the one thing we haven't been able to really deliver is offline, like ironically, because we're about an offline sort of, that's our whole concept, but we haven't been able to focus on doing sort of events and in-people meetups and stuff like that so far. But that's one of the next big pieces, is sort of having, like we often joke when we see all the run club stuff that we want to walk a club, but that's like something we want to get off the ground. And then, like meetups, like nature walks through the city where you can look at all the little urban pockets of nature and sort of get a bit of a taste of that in your day and stuff like that. But yeah, not something we've been able to actually tick off the box yet. But I think it is critical for brands these days to have that.
And then around like the community development side of this, because I can imagine something that would be fascinating around this is like storytelling behind what people are creating in these situations. Like you were talking before about the musicians coming out and creating music.
Yeah.
How have you thought about fostering more media or more content creation around this kind of thing? Because I think a lot of business owners right now are trying to think, how do I make more media, more content around what I'm doing that's less salesy, but more inspiring and more narrative led? Have you guys been playing with any of that?
Yeah, we've done that since the early days, actually. Like I mentioned the field recordings, which was the music, and we've had people send in, like we've had a famous composer for like film scores and things that went out to a cabin with like a full, like all the kit basically, and composed a bunch of songs out there, and we've had them send their stuff. We've got a journal, and we focus on a lot of those kind of stories through there. But then we also did, we had a writer's residency, I think our second year, because, I'm a big reader, a sort of passionate writer, and sort of realized that there were and are a lot of writers' residencies, but none of them were really targeting young writers.
Can you explain what that is? Like, I understand it as like when writers are kind of like stuck or they have to get through an idea, they would, and have for hundreds of years gone out into cabins, and sat in nature and like gotten ideas. Like, can you explain what exactly that is? Yeah,
so a writer's residency, is usually a program where generally you have to be sort of published, or like an up and coming person, and then you get, I guess, a free stay somewhere interesting to focus on your writing.
Like a musician writing an album, like you're going to go somewhere and make it a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And what we'd seen was most of them, like most young writers who are working day jobs and living in the city and not sort of fully published and able to just disappear to like, Alice Springs in some outback cabin, like these programs weren't there for them. And we knew that the creative power of nature was there. So we wanted to create a way for people to have like almost an easily accessible writer's residency. So we did this program called the Unyoked Writer's Residency. We pitched out to any young writer and any kind, like prose, poems, anything. And we basically got them to submit material that was inspired by nature. And then we had a judging panel with some famous authors and editors on it. And then we basically picked, like everyone got access to cabins, but we picked the finalists. We have actually published a book called the Writer's Anthology, and it's got all of the finalists in it to sort of lift up their profile and give their writing like some airtime. And then all of the finalists also got got the residency. So they got, can't remember the exact access, but it was like extended access over a certain amount of time for free for the cabins to go and pursue their goal and like write what they were trying to finish.
How has all of this activity like helped the brand? Because I can imagine these collaborations, these stories, these narratives you're creating, they're a lot more dynamic and interesting than like pumping meta ads and doing email blasts. What outcome has this extra creative activity created for the brands?
It's, I guess the largest thing is brand strength and identity. So it's lifted up our brand to be like the brand footprint far outstrips our physical footprint. We had an 8-page spread in Wired magazine Japan, for example, which is really cool for two reasons. One, it's Japan, we're not in Japan. And two, it's Wired magazine, which writes about tech and future, not about nature. So cut through that much. And we've had tons of that. So our brand presence and like the it's become a recognizable brand.
That's a big thing in Japan. Like for those that aren't familiar, Wired magazine is like a cult status symbol in Japan. Like it's all things culture.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Being an 8-page spread in that magazine is massive.
All about nature and cabins and slowing down. And like there's been that all around the world basically.
It's like almost like people are spreading the word virally about the concept. And I think the beauty about it is quite simplistic.
Exactly. And
oftentimes people overcomplicate, embellish what their brand is.
Yeah, and it's brand strength and awareness foremost, but then the downstream impacts are you've got when you get tons of PR, so it's earned PR, not paid PR, that because you've done something interesting that people like, it gets spread everywhere. So then you get lots of top of funnel, you grow your audiences, and then you get all of these pieces of content that you can use on emails, on ads, on all your other channels as well, like the articles, like the music tracks and things like that.
Right. So you're creating this material to then use for ads, make your emails more interesting, things like that.
Yeah. So it sort of becomes like this evergreen content that created this huge moment and grew the brand and everything, but also becomes this evergreen content that furthers your brand strategy at the same time.
Is this creating pressure though? Like when you like succeed with one of these campaigns, you're like, all right, we got to like do the next one and then the next one. You know what I mean? Like you got to keep the business rolling. You got to keep the operation online.
Yeah.
Do you feel that pressure?
Not so much. I think it's more like excitement because you just want to do more. Like if we, it fortunately doesn't go like that, but if you could just do that, that would be awesome. Like that's a sick job, right? Although we think like that's another unique thing about the company, I guess, is like we won't ever have people that just come out with the ideas and are divorced from doing it. I think that's really important, is having people who come up with the ideas also have some sort of level of engagement with the actual execution of it, because it comes to that sort of whole network, interconnected thinking around like how is this, like is it getting executed in the right way? Is it the little big things and all of that sort of stuff, rather than someone just coming up with a fancy idea and passing it to someone else?
No, I'm awestruck by your idea. I think you've struck gold. It's fascinating. It's deep. It's rich. It's branded well. And I get it. I can feel it just with how you speak about it and how important this is to you. It's just so good to see a brand that like truly believes in what it's doing and it's found a way to be commercially viable, and then it's got a plan for the future. So it's pretty rare to see someone having had created something as epic as this.
Thanks, man.
For those listening, how can they get in touch with you if they want to collaborate? Because obviously we can Google Unyoked to find your brand, but how can people reach out if they want to find a way to partner with yourself?
You can, probably the best way is just shooting us an email to hello@unyoked.co. Because if it's a brand collaboration, it'll come directly to me anyway. Otherwise, just if you just shoot us a DM in Instagram, like again, that'll come straight through. Or you can find me on LinkedIn if you type in Cam Grant and look for the photo of the guy facing away from the camera.
Awesome. And if they do that, they don't have to wait 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. The last question we like to ask people is around the idea of agency. So we ask everyone this question at the end of each episode. And the reason I started this show was because I'm obsessed with people that have a proclivity to do things and they have like no off switch. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm a guy who runs an agency, I'm obsessed with people who take agency. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you to take agency in life and business?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's relating to that. It's kind of related to the quote that I had around that uncompromising on the vision, flexible in the details. I think it's about, doing things your way essentially, which for us especially resonates because that's why we started Unyoked. That's why we didn't want to be in the corporate game. Like there's just so many things done in the world where you ask why and people say because, and that's such a shit answer. And I think having agency in business and personal is about doing it yourself, like doing it your own way, realizing you can make a decision, you can say no, you can do it differently, and sort of, I guess, following your own path.
Well, with that being said, I am excited to come and check out and have my own Unyoked experience. And you've been very generous to offer that to myself. I want to thank you for being here. Genuinely love your idea and what you're creating. I'm inspired, and from one strategist to another, just keep going, man. Don't quit. Like what you're building is fucking awesome.
Thanks, man. I'm stoked to chat with you, and looking forward to having you down and next steps.
Thank you so much.